So here's a question. All right, one of the questions I like to ask. Did you ever have a side character that you thought who would leave the scene rather quickly but ended up staying longer on the page or surprised you in any way?
Yeah.
Who? Expand.
Mine was Ray, that he was supposed to be in one book and he ended up being in 3, 4, 5, and another female character who's also.
How did they surprise you?
They just wouldn't go away. They just wouldn't leave, and they just kept, showing up. And I don't plot. I'm a pantser, so they would just kind of, pop into the scene. To be like surprised, yeah.
I mean, I've had a couple like that. I had, Mac become, as soon as I met him, I knew there was something about him, and I wasn't quite sure what, but I knew that he was going to stick around longer than I planned. And also another one is Forge. In the first book, Fury of Fire, he was basically a bad guy. He was one of the villains, and through a series of, I don't know, whatever, he ended up having a son, and now he's part of the good guy pack, and so, but that was not planned, and I had no idea who he was when he showed up. I just ran with it, and he's ended up to be a very powerful character in the books.
I would say my character Doc, who early on I thought he was going to be one of my first kills, and then it turned out that Fee was in love with him, so I decided to let him live.
Yeah, and I didn't realize until I'm just sitting here thinking about something you said, and I have that's okay. That I have a character called Aurora in the first Goddess book. She is the goddess of the dawn. She's the Roman goddess of the dawn, and the main character in What a Goddess Wants is the Etruscan goddess of the dawn, who's pissed off that the Romans usurped the Etruscans, and Aurora is this giggly, bubbly ditz. And I really hated her, but I needed her for the story, and I thought I could, she would be a once and done. Well, she starts to pop up everywhere else, because I realized that giggly, bubbly ditz is one of my best friends in real life, and I based her on her character, and never realized that. And my mother will know who it is once she figures it out. And she's starting to weave herself back into the stories, because she's just so ditzy that eventually she has to have a purpose. She can't just be so beautiful for nothing, So.
Yeah, I didn't think, but in X-Ops there's a character called Foley, and he works for the Department of Covert Operations, and he doesn't like the shifters. He thinks they're freaks, and he's not shy to tell him that either. And he's pretty much of a jerk, and I hate him pretty much. I'm sure everybody hates him that read the book. He has a kind of a little purple when you see him, you hate him. But then he's mentioned in book 2. We don't see him, but in book 4 he comes back in kind of a big way. But even in book, I would say 5 and 6, he's even more so. And he's not going to be a main character or anything ever, but he's going to have a lot of influence on what happens, I think. So, yeah.
We have time for one more question before we do our drawing. Does anybody have some burning?
If you do,
Apparently they're not quite awake yet.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see.
So I'm kind of going to go the opposite way of what someone else asked. A sidekick or ancillary character who stayed around and made their way into a world that you absolutely dislike and would like to have seen killed long, long ago.
Ours or someone else's?
Anyone. Anyone.
Anyone you would admit to.
So I had one, and he turned out to be, he was supposed to be just sort of a blip on the radar screen. His name is Hammersfeld. They call him Speld in the series. And he's taken on a fairly large role now, and he's exactly where I don't want him to be. And he's pissing me off because he's just so freaking nasty. I can't stand him, and he's gunning for one of my guys who I love. So I'm just like, well, I wish he would just go away, but he won't. And
I can make that happen.
You and I need to talk, because he's just taking on a bigger and bigger role, and he really, I can't find anything to really like about him. And so anyway, but he's there to stay now, so I'm dealing with that guy. But that's, for me, it's him.
I guess there's I mean, you gotta have your bad guy in the shadow your organization from the government, and his name is Dick, appropriately so, let's just say that. And I thought he was just gonna be a little bit, but then he keeps hanging around, and he keeps making trouble, and I'm like, will you just go away? But I think I will take care of that later. So. He'll get his, let's just say that.
Anybody else?
I kill people off whenever I'm ready to, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's a non-question for Kristen. She just takes it.
I work